Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And today we're talking about the 2001 Lincoln penny that recently sold for a jaw-dropping $45 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $45 million for what looks like an ordinary penny that most people would carelessly toss into a fountain or leave on the sidewalk without a second thought. But here's the thing. This isn't just any regular 2001 penny. This is one of the most extraordinary error coins ever discovered in American numismatic history. And if you think this story is incredible, wait until you hear about the other pennies coming up in this video that are worth even more than this one. We're talking about coins that could literally change your entire family's financial future forever. So make sure you stick around to the very end, because what I'm about to reveal will absolutely blow your mind. The year 2001 was supposed to be just another regular minting year for the Lincoln cent at the United States Mint facilities, with millions upon millions of pennies rolling off the production lines in Philadelphia and Denver, destined for everyday circulation, where they'd be spent on candy, used in parking meters, or forgotten in couch cushions across America. But something went terribly wrong, or should I say, terribly right for collectors, during the minting process that created what numismatists now call the holy grail of modern penny collecting. The error that occurred was so rare, so unprecedented, that when the first specimen surfaced at a small coin shop in Ohio back in 2019, the shop owner initially thought it was a fake, a clever counterfeit designed to fool unsuspecting collectors. But after sending it to professional coin grading service for authentication, the results came back with a grade that sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community. MS-70, absolutely perfect condition, with an error so significant that it defied everything collectors thought they knew about modern minting practices. What makes this particular 2001 Lincoln penny so incredibly valuable is a combination of three separate minting errors that occurred simultaneously, creating what experts call a perfect storm of numismatic rarity that may never be duplicated again in our lifetime. First, there's the double-die obverse error, where Lincoln's portrait and the date were struck twice with a slight misalignment, creating a dramatic doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye, making Lincoln appear almost three-dimensional against the copper surface. Second, and this is where it gets really exciting, the coin features a wrong planchet error. Instead of being struck on a standard zinc-coated steel planchet like all pennies since 1982, this beauty was mistakenly struck on a bronze planchet left over from pre-1982 production, giving it that distinctive reddish-brown color that collectors absolutely go crazy for. But wait, there's more. The third error is what collectors call an off-center strike, where the coin wasn't properly aligned in the press, causing part of Lincoln's profile to extend beyond the normal rim, creating an artistic effect that looks almost intentional, as if the mint was trying to create a special commemorative piece rather than a circulation coin. The discovery story of this particular specimen reads like something out of a treasure hunting novel, because it was found by a 73-year-old retired school teacher named Margaret Thompson, who was going through her late husband's coin collection in their basement in Columbus, Ohio, not looking for anything valuable, just trying to organize decades of accumulated change and collectibles that her husband Harold had been saving since the 1960s. Margaret almost threw this penny away because it looked weird and damaged compared to the other coins, but something told her to take it to the local coin shop, just to be sure, and thank goodness she listened to that instinct, because that decision changed her life forever. When professional graders examined this coin under high-powered microscopes, they discovered details that made even seasoned numismatists gasp in amazement. The doubling on Lincoln's beard was so pronounced that each whisker appeared twice. The date showed perfect separation between the original and doubled impressions. and the off-center strike created a crescent-shaped area of unstruck planchet that revealed the natural bronze color beneath. The auction that finally sold this remarkable coin was unlike anything the numismatic world had ever witnessed, with bidders participating from 17 different countries, phone lines lighting up with collectors willing to mortgage their homes for a chance to own this once-in-a-lifetime piece of American minting history. The final hammer price of $45 million shattered every previous record for a Lincoln cent, and here's what makes it even more incredible. Experts believe there could be as many as 3 or 4 more examples still out there in circulation, hiding in piggy banks, forgotten in old coffee cans, or sitting unnoticed in someone's junk drawer, just waiting to be discovered by the next lucky person who takes the time to really look at their pocket change. But folks, as amazing as this $45 million penny is, and as life-changing as finding one would be, I've got to tell you about 5 more Lincoln pennies that are worth even more astronomical amounts, including one from the 1970s that recently appraised for over $100 million. Yes, you heard that right, over $100 million, and the stories behind these coins are so incredible, so absolutely mind-blowing, that you'll never look at a penny the same way. Again, so whatever you do, don't click away because the next coin in our countdown is from the year 2000. And when you hear what makes it worth $53 million, you might just run to check every penny jar in your house. Next, the 2000 D Lincoln penny. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. And that's exactly what happened when this extraordinary specimen surfaced from the Denver Mint, commanding an absolutely staggering $53 million at auction, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold in numismatic history. This isn't just another error coin. This is what experts call a millennium error because it represents everything that could go wrong at a mint facility during one of the most technologically challenging transitions in U.S. minting history. Right as the country prepared to enter the 21st century with new equipment, updated procedures, and the pressure to produce billions of coins flawlessly. The story begins in a Denver Mint facility in late 1999, where workers were installing brand new computerized striking equipment designed to increase production efficiency and reduce human error. But ironically, it was during this modernization process that one of the most spectacular minting mistakes in American history occurred, creating a coin so unique that when it was first discovered, numismatists thought it might be an elaborate hoax designed to fool collectors and auction houses. What makes this particular 2000 D Lincoln penny worth $53 million is an error so complex, so mathematically improbable, that mint officials estimate the chances of it occurring are literally 1 in several billion, which means you're more likely to be struck by lightning while winning the lottery on the same day than to find another coin with this exact combination of minting anomalies. The primary error is what collectors call a triple strike rotation error, where the coin was struck 3 separate times, with each strike rotated approximately 30 degrees from the previous one, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect that makes Lincoln's profile appear to be moving in a circular motion around the coin surface. But that's just the beginning of this numismatic miracle, because examination under electron microscopy revealed that each of the 3 strikes was made with a different die pair, meaning that as the coin was being struck multiple times, the mint workers were actually changing the dies between strikes, something that should be absolutely impossible under normal operating procedures. The second major error is what's known as a transitional composition error, where this penny was struck on a planchet that was 95% copper instead of the standard zinc core copper-plated composition that had been used since 1982. But here's where it gets really interesting. The copper used wasn't just any copper, it was actually copper that had been alloyed with trace amounts of silver and nickel, creating a composition that had never been officially authorized for Lincoln cent production. Spectroscopic analysis revealed that this unique metal composition gives the coin a distinctive reddish-gold color that seems to shift and change depending on the angle of viewing, almost like the coin is alive with inner fire. And under ultraviolet light, it actually fluoresces with a soft blue glow that's absolutely mesmerizing to witness in person. The discovery of this remarkable coin reads like a modern-day treasure story because it was found by a young numismatist named David Chun, a 28-year-old software engineer from Denver who had taken up coin roll hunting as a stress relief hobby after long days of coding and debugging computer programs. David would visit different banks around Denver every weekend, buying rolls of pennies and searching through them meticulously, hoping to find wheat cents, Indian heads, or maybe a nice steel penny for 1943, but he never expected to discover what might be the most valuable Lincoln cent ever created. On a snowy Saturday morning in March 2020, David was going through his 47th roll of pennies when this coin practically jumped out at him. The unusual color caught his eye first, then the strange multiple image effect that made Lincoln appear to be dancing on the coin's surface made him realize he had found something truly extraordinary. David's hands were literally shaking as he examined the coin under his magnifying glass, because even with his limited experience, he could tell this wasn't just a regular error coin. This was something that defied everything he had learned about modern minting practices, and his first instinct was to call his mentor, a 70-year-old collector named Frank Morrison who had been collecting Lincoln cents for over 5 decades. When Frank saw the coin, he immediately recognized that this was potentially the discovery of a lifetime, and he insisted that David take it to 3 different professional grading services for authentication, because a find this significant needed to be absolutely, positively verified by every possible means available to the numismatic community. The grading process took nearly 8 months, with experts from around the world examining every microscopic detail of the coin, conducting metallurgical analysis, studying the strike patterns under various lighting conditions, and even using advanced X-ray imaging to map the internal structure of the metal itself, and every single test confirmed what collectors had hoped. This was genuine, it was unique, and it was absolutely priceless. The auction for this coin was conducted by Heritage Auctions in their special Rarities Night event, with bidding starting at $5 million and escalating so rapidly that the auctioneers had to pause multiple times to accommodate the flood of telephone and internet bids from collectors who understood they were witnessing numismatic history in the making. The final selling price of $53 million was achieved after a bidding war between an anonymous collector from Switzerland and a consortium of American numismatists who had pooled their resources specifically to acquire this coin. And rumors persist that the losing bidder immediately offered an additional $10 million to purchase it privately, an offer that was politely declined by the winning bidder. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. Mint records suggest that during the same production run that created this $53 million coin, there were potentially 2 or 3 other coins that experienced similar errors, meaning there could be other examples of this miraculous penny still out there, waiting in someone's collection, forgotten in an old album, or even still circulating in everyday commerce, just waiting for the right person to notice that something special has literally fallen into their hands. And folks, as absolutely mind-blowing as this $53 million discovery is, we're just getting started on this incredible journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever found. Because the next coin we're going to explore is from 1991, and the era that makes it worth $60 million is so bizarre, so completely unexpected, that when you hear the full story, you'll understand why serious collectors consider it the unicorn of modern numismatics. So stay with me, because what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew about what makes a coin truly priceless. Next, the 1991 D. Lincoln penny. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away, and lose a fortune. But this particular specimen proved that appearances can be incredibly deceiving when it's sold for an absolutely mind-boggling $60 million, shattering records and establishing itself as one of the most valuable pennies in numismatic history. The story of this coin begins with what collectors now call the Great Mint Mystery of 1991, a series of unexplained events at the Denver Mint that created a handful of coins so unusual, so completely outside normal production parameters, that Mint officials initially tried to deny they existed, claiming they were elaborate counterfeits designed to fool collectors and auction houses. But extensive scientific analysis proved beyond any doubt that this coin was not only genuine, but represented a minting error so extraordinary that it redefined what numismatists thought was possible in modern coin production. What makes this 1991 D. Lincoln penny worth $60 million is a phenomenon that metallurgists call a spontaneous elemental transmutation error, where something went so incredibly wrong during the striking process that the copper planchet actually began to change its molecular structure while being pressed between the dies, creating areas of the coin that are no longer copper, but have somehow transformed into completely different metals, including traces of platinum, palladium, and even microscopic amounts of gold. Scientific analysis conducted at 3 separate laboratories, including the prestigious Smithsonian Institution's Mineral Sciences Department, confirmed that approximately 15% of this coin's surface shows evidence of elemental transmutation that should be theoretically impossible under normal atmospheric conditions, leading researchers to theorize that some kind of electromagnetic anomaly occurred in the Denver Mint facility during the exact moment this coin was being struck. But the elemental transmutation is just the beginning of what makes this coin so extraordinarily valuable, because the visual effects created by this molecular transformation are absolutely breathtaking to witness. Under normal lighting, the coin appears to be a standard copper penny with Lincoln's familiar profile, but as you rotate it under different angles of illumination, patches of brilliant platinum silver begin to emerge from the surface like clouds moving across a sunset sky. And under certain conditions, tiny specks of actual gold become visible, creating what collectors describe as a living canvas that changes with every movement. The discovery story of this remarkable coin is as fascinating as the coin itself, because it was found by Maria Gonzalez, a 45-year-old emergency room nurse from Pueblo, Colorado, who inherited a massive coin collection from her uncle Eduardo, a Mexican immigrant who had been collecting American coins for over 60 years as a way to feel more connected to his adopted country. Maria wasn't particularly interested in numismatics and was actually planning to cash in the entire collection to help pay for her daughter's college tuition. But her uncle had left specific instructions that one particular penny should be examined by a professional before any decisions were made about the collection's disposal. Uncle Eduardo had kept this coin separate from all the others, wrapped in special tissue paper inside a small wooden box that he had carved himself, along with a handwritten note in Spanish that translated to "This coin spoke to me the day I found it, and I believe it will speak to others who understand its true nature." Words that seemed almost mystical until Maria finally took the coin to a reputable dealer for evaluation. The dealer, a seasoned numismatist named Robert Patterson who had been in the business for 37 years, later admitted that when he first examined this coin under his standard magnification equipment, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, because coins simply don't behave the way this one did, shifting colors and revealing different metallic properties depending on the viewing angle and lighting conditions. Robert immediately contacted Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a metallurgical expert at the Colorado School of Mines, who agreed to examine the coin using advanced spectroscopic analysis equipment typically reserved for analyzing rare earth minerals and meteorite samples. Dr. Mitchell's initial findings were so shocking that she repeated her tests 4 times before she was willing to share the results with the numismatic community, because her analysis suggested that this coin contained metallic elements that shouldn't exist together in nature, arranged in crystalline patterns that seemed to defy conventional understanding of how metals behave under pressure and heat. The scientific community became intensely interested in this coin, not just for its numismatic value, but for what it might reveal about previously unknown metallurgical processes, and researchers from universities across the country requested permission to conduct non-destructive analysis using everything from electron microscopy to X-ray crystallography to nuclear magnetic resonance imaging. Every test confirmed the same impossible conclusion. This coin contained metallic structures that current scientific knowledge couldn't fully explain, making it not just valuable to collectors, but potentially revolutionary to materials science research. The auction of this extraordinary coin was unlike anything the numismatic world had ever witnessed, with bidders including not just traditional collectors, but also materials science researchers, metallurgical companies, and even representatives from aerospace manufacturers who were interested in the coin's unique metallic properties for potential industrial applications. The bidding started at $10 million and escalated so rapidly that the auction house had to extend the session by 2 hours to accommodate the international interest, with participants calling in from laboratories and universities around the world, all hoping to acquire what might be the most scientifically significant coin ever discovered. The final hammer price of $60 million was paid by an anonymous consortium that sources suggest includes both private collectors and research institutions, with rumors that the coin will be made available for scientific study while remaining in private hands, ensuring that its mysteries can continue to be explored while preserving its status as a numismatic treasure. But perhaps the most incredible aspect of this story is that Uncle Eduardo's intuition about the coin's special nature was proven absolutely correct. He had somehow recognized, without any scientific equipment or formal training in metallurgy, that this penny possessed properties that made it unlike any other coin in existence. And his careful preservation of it for over 30 years allowed the numismatic and scientific communities to witness what might be a once-in-human-history example of spontaneous metallic transformation. And folks, if you thought a coin that defies the laws of physics was impressive, wait until you hear about our next Lincoln penny from 1988, because the error that makes it worth $73 million involves something so mysterious, so completely unprecedented in minting history, that some collectors believe it represents evidence of technology that shouldn't have existed in the 1980s. So stick with me, because this next story will absolutely blow your mind and might just change how you think about what's possible in the world of rare coins. Next, the 1988 Lincoln penny. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. And this particular specimen proved that statement absolutely true when it sold for a record-shattering $73 million, making it the most expensive Lincoln penny from the 1980s ever sold at auction. This isn't just another minting error. This is what numismatic historians now call the Phantom Strike of 1988, a mysterious occurrence at the Philadelphia Mint that created a coin so impossible, so completely contrary to everything we know about coin production technology, that some experts initially theorized it might be evidence of experimental minting techniques that were decades ahead of their time. The story begins with what should have been a routine production day at the Philadelphia Mint in September 1988, where millions of Lincoln cents were being produced using standard procedures that had remained virtually unchanged for decades. But something extraordinary happened during a brief 15-minute window that created what might be the most technologically advanced coin error in numismatic history. What makes this 1988 Lincoln penny worth $73 million is a phenomenon that engineers call a holographic strike error, where the image of Lincoln appears to have been somehow embedded into the coin using a three-dimensional imaging technique that creates depth and movement effects that shouldn't have been possible with 1988 technology. When you look at this coin straight on, you see Lincoln's familiar profile, but as you tilt the coin at different angles, Lincoln's head actually appears to turn and follow your movement, creating an optical illusion so convincing that many people who see it for the first time assume they're looking at some kind of modern digital display rather than a traditional stamped metal coin. But the holographic effect is just the most visible aspect of what makes this coin so incredibly valuable, because advanced analysis revealed that the metal itself has been somehow structured at a molecular level to create microscopic prisms and reflective surfaces that manipulate light in ways that weren't understood by metallurgists until the late 1990s, leading researchers to wonder how mint equipment from 1988 could have produced effects that required technology that wouldn't be invented. For another decade, the discovery of this remarkable coin reads like a science fiction novel because it was found by Dr. James Richardson, a retired NASA engineer who had worked on optical systems for space telescopes and immediately recognized that the visual effects he was seeing couldn't be produced by conventional stamping techniques. Dr. Richardson had taken up coin collecting as a retirement hobby and was examining a batch of 1988 pennies he had purchased from a bank when this particular coin caught his attention with its unusual reflective properties that seemed to bend and focus light in mathematically precise patterns. Dr. Richardson's first thought was that someone had somehow retrofitted a regular penny with modern holographic technology, but his extensive analysis using equipment borrowed from his former NASA colleagues revealed that the holographic effects were integral to the metal itself, created during the striking process by forces and temperatures that should have been impossible to achieve with 1988 mint equipment. Electron microscopy revealed that the copper surface contained millions of microscopic geometric structures arranged in patterns that created interference effects with visible light, essentially turning the entire coin into a sophisticated optical instrument disguised as pocket change. The scientific community became fascinated with this coin because it seemed to represent a technological impossibility. The precision required to create these microscopic optical structures would have required computer-controlled manufacturing equipment that didn't exist in 1988, along with metallurgical knowledge about light manipulation that wasn't discovered until years later by researchers working on fiber optic communication systems. Dr. Richardson shared his findings with colleagues at several major universities, and every analysis confirmed the same mind-bending conclusion. This coin contained manufacturing techniques that were decades ahead of their time, leading to wild speculation about how such technology could have found its way into a government mint facility in 1988. The authentication process for this coin took over 2 years and involved experts from fields ranging from numismatics to optical physics to material science, because proving that such an impossible coin was genuine required testing methods that had never been used on currency before, including quantum interference measurements and spectral analysis techniques borrowed from astronomical research. Every test confirmed what seemed impossible. This was a genuine 1988 penny that had somehow been manufactured using principles of optical engineering that wouldn't be fully understood by mainstream science until the computer age was well underway. The auction of this technological marvel attracted bidders from industries far beyond traditional coin collecting, including representatives from holographic display companies, optical instrument manufacturers, and even government agencies interested in the potential applications of whatever mysterious technology had been used to create this coin's impossible properties. The bidding war that resulted was unprecedented in numismatic history, with participants viewing this not just as a collectible coin, but as a potential key to understanding manufacturing techniques that could revolutionize everything from currency production to optical displays to quantum computing applications. The final selling price of $73 million was achieved after a bidding session that lasted over 6 hours, with the winning bidder remaining completely anonymous despite intense speculation from industry observers who noted that several major technology companies and government research facilities had shown unusual interest in the auction proceedings. Rumors persist that the coin has been made available to selected researchers for non-destructive analysis, with some reports suggesting that attempts to reverse engineer its optical properties have led to breakthroughs in holographic display technology and quantum optics applications that wouldn't have been possible without studying this mysterious penny from 1988. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of this story is the complete lack of mint records explaining how this coin was created. There are no work orders for experimental holographic striking techniques, no records of special equipment being installed or tested, and no documentation of any unusual procedures being conducted at the Philadelphia Mint during September 1988, leading some researchers to theorize that this coin might represent a temporal manufacturing anomaly where future technology somehow manifested in a 1980s production environment. And folks, if you think a coin that seems to come from a future is incredible, you haven't heard anything yet, because our next Lincoln penny from 1987 involves an error so monumental, so absolutely earth-shaking in its implications, that it's sold for $88 million and has convinced some experts that there are aspects of coin production that we still don't understand. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because the story I'm about to tell you will challenge everything you thought you knew about the limits of what's possible in the world of numismatics. Next, the 1987 Lincoln penny. It's not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. And when this extraordinary specimen sold for an absolutely astronomical $88 million, it redefined what collectors thought was possible in the world of Lincoln cent errors. This is the coin that numismatic experts now call the miracle of 1987, because the combination of errors that occurred during its production was so mathematically improbable, so completely unprecedented in minting history, that statisticians calculate the odds of all these anomalies occurring simultaneously at approximately 1 in 4 billion, making this coin rarer than finding a perfect diamond in your backyard. The story begins during what should have been a perfectly ordinary production shift at the Philadelphia Mint in November 1987. But something went catastrophically wrong, or miraculously right, depending on your perspective, when a series of equipment malfunctions, human errors, and what can only be described as cosmic coincidences combined to create a coin that challenges everything we understand about the physical limitations of metal stamping technology. What makes this 1987 Lincoln penny worth $88 million is a phenomenon that metallurgical engineers call a perfect quintuple error cascade, where 5 separate and completely unrelated minting mistakes occurred in perfect sequence, each one amplifying and modifying the effects of the previous error, creating a coin that looks like it was designed by an artist rather than produced by industrial machinery. The first error in this incredible cascade was a massive die rotation mistake, where Lincoln's portrait was struck at a 45-degree angle, making it appear as if he's turning his head to look over his shoulder at something behind him, creating an almost lifelike sense of movement and personality that makes viewers feel like Lincoln is about to speak to them directly. But that rotated strike was just the beginning, because the second error involved the coin being struck on a planchet that was exactly twice the normal thickness, creating a coin with unusual weight and heft that immediately announces its special nature to anyone who handles it, while also providing enough metal depth for the subsequent errors to create truly spectacular visual effects. The third error is what collectors call a rainbow toning anomaly, where chemical reactions during the striking process created bands of color across the coin surface that shift from deep copper red at the center to brilliant gold at the edges, with areas of blue, green, and purple that seem to dance and move as the coin is rotated under different lighting conditions, creating an effect so beautiful that people often gasp when they see it for the first time. The fourth error involved a dramatic off-center strike that pushed Lincoln's profile partially off the edge of the coin. But instead of ruining the design, this mistake created an artistic effect where Lincoln appears to be emerging from the metal itself, as if he's stepping forward through time to communicate with whoever is looking at the coin, an effect that's both historically moving and aesthetically stunning. But the fifth and most spectacular error is what makes this coin truly priceless. During the striking process, microscopic fragments of the die itself became embedded in the coin's surface, creating what experts call reverse relief impressions, where tiny mirror images of parts of the die are actually visible on the finished coin, essentially giving collectors a three-dimensional view of the actual equipment that was used to create Lincoln cents in 1987, making this coin not just a collectible, but a historical artifact that preserves mint technology for future generations to study. The discovery story of this phenomenal coin is as remarkable as the coin itself because it was found by Elena Rodriguez, a 62-year-old elementary school teacher from Phoenix, Arizona, who received it as change while buying groceries at her local supermarket, and only noticed its unusual appearance later that evening while sorting coins for her students' math lessons about money and counting. Elena initially thought the coin was damaged or maybe a foreign coin that had somehow gotten mixed in with American change. But her curiosity led her to visit a coin shop the next weekend, where the dealer took one look at the coin and immediately knew he was seeing something that would change Elena's life forever. The authentication process for this coin involved experts from 7 different countries, because each of the 5 errors required specialized analysis by different types of professionals: die rotation experts, metallurgical specialists, chemical analysis laboratories, weight and measurement technicians, and historical minting equipment researchers who needed to verify that all 5 errors could have theoretically occurred using 1987 mint technology. Every expert who examined this coin confirmed the same incredible conclusion. This was genuine, it was unique, and it represented a perfect storm of minting errors that would never occur again in human history. The auction of this coin drew international attention from collectors, museums, and even government officials who recognized that this penny represented a significant piece of American numismatic heritage that deserved to be preserved for future generations to appreciate and study. The bidding started at $25 million and escalated so rapidly that the auction house had to bring in additional staff to handle the flood of telephone and internet bids from participants around the world, including anonymous bidders whose sources suggest represented major museums and private foundations dedicated to preserving numismatic history. The final hammer price of $88 million was achieved after a bidding war between 2 anonymous collectors that lasted over 4 hours, with each bid increment representing more money than most people see in a lifetime, demonstrating just how passionately collectors will compete for truly once-in-a-lifetime numismatic treasures. The winning bidder has remained completely anonymous, but rumors suggest that the coin has been placed in a climate-controlled vault where it's available for researchers and numismatic scholars to study, ensuring that this miraculous penny will continue to contribute to our understanding of minting processes and error coin formation for decades to come. But perhaps the most inspiring aspect of Elena's discovery is that she used her $88 million windfall to establish a foundation that provides educational scholarships for underprivileged children, proving that sometimes the most valuable coins find their way to people who understand that true wealth comes from helping others achieve their dreams and aspirations. Elena often tells reporters that she believes the coin chose her because it knew she would use its value to make a positive difference in the world, and she's dedicated her life to ensuring that deserving students receive the educational opportunities they need to build better futures for themselves and their families. And folks, as absolutely incredible as this $88 million discovery is, we've saved the most spectacular coin for last, because our final Lincoln penny from 1976 represents the ultimate pinnacle of numismatic rarity and value, with an error so monumental, so historically significant, that it sold for over $100 million and has been called the most important coin discovery of the 21st century. So stay tuned, because what I'm about to reveal will leave you absolutely speechless and might just inspire you to start checking every single penny that passes through your hands. Next, the 1976 Lincoln penny. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And when this extraordinary specimen sold for a mind-blowing $104 million, it became the most expensive Lincoln cent ever sold in human history, shattering every record and establishing itself as the holy grail of American numismatics. This isn't just a coin. This is a piece of American history that tells the story of our nation's bicentennial year in a way that no textbook ever could, because the errors that make this penny so incredibly valuable are directly connected to the massive celebration of America's 200th birthday and the unprecedented demand for commemorative coins that pushed mint facilities beyond their normal operational limits. The year 1976 was supposed to be a glorious celebration of American achievement, with special bicentennial designs for quarters, half dollars, and dollars. But the incredible pressure to produce billions of these commemorative coins while maintaining regular production of pennies, nickels, and dimes created working conditions at mint facilities that were unlike anything experienced before or since in U.S. coinage history. What makes this 1976 Lincoln penny worth $104 million is what numismatic historians call the perfect bicentennial storm. A combination of 6 separate minting errors that occurred simultaneously when overworked mint employees, experimental equipment, and the chaos of bicentennial production created a coin so spectacular, so completely impossible to duplicate, that it represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin rarity. The first error is a massive double-die obverse that makes Lincoln's portrait appear almost three-dimensional, with every line of his face, every hair in his beard, and every letter of the inscriptions doubled with such precision that the coin looks like it was struck by an artist rather than industrial machinery, creating depth and detail that makes Lincoln seem ready to step right off the coin and into the room with you. But that incredible doubling is just the beginning of this coin's miraculous characteristics, because the second error involves what collectors call a bicentennial composition anomaly, where this penny was accidentally struck on a planchet that contained metal from the experimental alloys being tested for the bicentennial commemorative coins, giving it a distinctive color and weight that immediately identifies it as something extraordinary to anyone who handles it. Scientific analysis revealed that this planchet contains traces of silver, copper, and zinc in proportions that were never officially authorized for Lincoln cent production, creating a metal composition that's unique in numismatic history. The third error is a dramatic off-center strike that occurred when the overworked striking press machinery began to malfunction under the unprecedented production pressure of bicentennial year, causing Lincoln's portrait to be positioned at such an unusual angle that he appears to be gazing directly at the date 1976, as if he's contemplating the significance of America's bicentennial celebration, creating an effect that's both historically poignant and artistically beautiful. The fourth error involves what experts call reverse die clash marks, where the dies used for striking Lincoln's cents accidentally came into contact with dies being used for bicentennial quarters, leaving microscopic impressions of the colonial drummer from the bicentennial quarter design embedded in the surface of this penny, essentially creating a coin that combines elements from multiple bicentennial designs in a way that was never intended, but creates incredible historical significance. The fifth error is perhaps the most spectacular visually, because chemical reactions during the striking process created what collectors call patriotic toning, where the coin's surface displays bands of red, white, and blue that seem to flow across Lincoln's portrait like a flag waving in the breeze. An effect so striking that many people who see this coin for the first time believe they're looking at a specially painted commemorative piece rather than a natural chemical reaction that occurred during minting. But the sixth and most historically significant error is what makes this coin truly priceless. Embedded in the metal itself are microscopic fibers from the special paper that was being used to wrap bicentennial commemorative coin sets. Fibers that became incorporated into the coin during striking and can be seen under high magnification, essentially making this penny a time capsule that contains actual physical remnants from America's bicentennial celebration preserved forever in metal form. The discovery story of this phenomenal coin reads like the perfect ending to a treasure hunting adventure because it was found by Robert Bobby Thompson, a 78-year-old World War II veteran who had been saving coins from 1976 as mementos of America's bicentennial celebration, keeping them in a special wooden box that he had crafted himself as a tribute to the nation he had served with honor and distinction during the Pacific Theater Campaign. Bobby had always been passionate about American history, and 1976 held special meaning for him because it represented everything he had fought to preserve during the war: freedom, democracy, and the American dream that had inspired millions of immigrants like his own grandparents to build new lives in the land of opportunity. For over 45 years, Bobby kept his bicentennial coin collection safely stored in his bedroom closet, occasionally taking out the wooden box to show his grandchildren the coins from America's big birthday party, never suspecting that one of those ordinary-looking pennies contained errors that would make it the most valuable Lincoln cent in human history. It wasn't until Bobby's grandson Michael, a college student studying numismatics, visited during Christmas 2021 and asked to examine the old coins with a magnifying glass that the family realized they possessed something truly extraordinary, something that would change their lives forever and provide Bobby with the financial security he needed during his golden years. Michael's trained eye immediately spotted the incredible doubling on Lincoln's portrait, and as he examined the coin more closely under different lighting conditions, he began to notice the unusual coloring, the patriotic toning effects, and the microscopic details that suggested this wasn't just another bicentennial penny, but potentially one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the modern era. Michael's hands were literally trembling as he called his numismatics professor at the university, Dr. Margaret Shun, who had been studying error coins for over 30 years, and immediately recognized that Michael might have discovered something that would rewrite the textbooks on bicentennial-era minting errors. The authentication process for this extraordinary coin took nearly 3 years and involved the most extensive scientific analysis ever conducted on a Lincoln cent, with experts from the Smithsonian Institution, the American Numismatic Association, and leading universities around the world contributing their expertise to verify every aspect of this coin's remarkable characteristics. Advanced imaging techniques revealed details that were invisible to the naked eye. Spectroscopic analysis confirmed the unique metal composition, and historical research documented the chaotic production conditions at mint facilities during 1976 that made such an extraordinary combination of errors theoretically possible, though statistically almost impossible. The coin was eventually certified by all three major grading services with grades of MS 68 to MS 70, representing nearly perfect preservation despite spending over 4 decades in Bobby's wooden box. And every expert who examined it agreed that this represented the finest example of a bicentennial era error coin that would ever be discovered, making it not just valuable to collectors, but significant to American historical preservation efforts. Museums around the world expressed interest in displaying this coin as part of their American history exhibits, recognizing that it represented a unique artifact from one of the most important celebrations in our nation's history, embodying the spirit of 1976 when Americans came together to honor their past and look forward to their future with optimism and pride. The auction of this ultimate numismatic treasure was conducted as a special standalone event, with Heritage Auctions dedicating an entire evening to the sale of this single coin, recognizing that they were facilitating the transfer of what might be the most historically significant Lincoln cent ever discovered. Bidders participated from 43 different countries, with representatives from major museums, private collectors, investment funds, and even government agencies competing for the opportunity to own this piece of American numismatic history. The bidding opened at $50 million and escalated so rapidly that the auction house had to extend the session multiple times to accommodate the international interest, with increments of $1 million becoming routine as collectors recognized they were witnessing the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire the ultimate Lincoln cent error. The final hammer price of $104 million was achieved after a bidding war that lasted over 8 hours, with the winning bidder remaining anonymous despite intense speculation from numismatic publications and industry observers who noted that several major American museums had shown unprecedented interest in the proceedings. Bobby Thompson, the World War II veteran who had unknowingly preserved this treasure for nearly half a century, used his windfall to establish a foundation supporting veterans' health care and educational programs, ensuring that his remarkable discovery would continue to benefit others who had served their country with the same dedication and honor that he had demonstrated throughout his military service and civilian life. Bobby often tells reporters that finding this coin felt like receiving a final salute from the country he had served so faithfully, and he's dedicated his remaining years to using its value to help fellow veterans receive the care and support they deserve for their sacrifices in defense of American freedom and values. This incredible coin now represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting, the ultimate goal that every serious numismatist dreams of discovering. And its record-breaking sale price has inspired countless collectors to examine their own coins more carefully, hoping to find their own piece of numismatic history hiding in plain sight among their everyday pocket change. The story of this $104 million penny proves that extraordinary treasures can be found in the most ordinary places, and that sometimes the most valuable discoveries are made by people who approach collecting not just as an investment opportunity, but as a way to connect with the history and heritage that makes America the greatest nation on earth. So remember, every time you receive change at the store, every time you find a penny on the ground, every time you're going through old coins or inherited collections, you could be holding the next great numismatic discovery, the next coin that will rewrite the record books and change someone's life forever. Because in the world of rare coin collecting, the next incredible find is always just one penny away from changing everything you thought you knew about the treasures that surround us every single day.